Soy intérprete en español. Si ocupa interpretación, déjeme saber. I'm Sylvia Trevino, the Spanish interpreter.
Sign language instructor, or introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Tiffany Jones. I'm a sign language interpreter. My team today is Tiana Sandoval. She's also an interpreter.
Madam Chair, or Pro Tem Learner.
Good morning, everybody. Can you all hear back there? No. Okay. Come on up. Can you hear now? Just checking in the back of the room. Okay. All right, is that any better? No? All right, I'm going to try this, see if this works. All right, good morning. Thank you for being here. I now call to order the public hearing of the Independent Redistricting Commission. We ask that you follow the Arizona Department of Health guidelines in regards to COVID-19. If you are not fully vaccinated, you should wear a mask in a public space. If you would like to participate from home, each of these meetings is being streamed through Webex, YouTube, and our social media channels. They're also being recorded and posted on our website at irc.az.gov. If you would like to make a public comment, you may do so by signing in with staff and filling out the public comment card. As you have heard and were introduced earlier, we have an American Sign Language interpreter joining us virtually. We also have a transcriptionist who will be transcribing every meeting. We ask that you please speak slowly and clearly so we have a clear record of your input. We want to hear from you. We appreciate you being here. At this time, we will introduce ourselves.
Hello, everyone. My name is Erica Newberg. I'm the chairwoman in Independent from North Chandler. And of the 18 public hearings, I have to say it's super fun being here. It's the closest to my home. So thank you for coming, and we look forward to your feedback.
Good morning again. My name is Shireen Lerner. I'm one of the representatives from Maricopa County, one of the Democrats. And I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner York.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Doug York. I am a commissioner for Maricopa County also, and I represent the Republican Party.
Okay, thank you. Now what we're going to do is move to agenda item 2, which is a presentation on the process. First, we're going to have a representation from our legal team. So, Daniel.
Good morning. My name is Daniel Ariano. I am one of the attorneys for the Redistricting Commission. And this morning, I'd just like to prepare a few brief remarks going over both the structure of the commission and the process of redistricting in our state. So you could turn to the first slide, please. So the U.S. Constitution provides that every 10 years we're to have a census to count the number of Americans in our country, and that the Congress is to then reapportion the number of representatives among the states, but otherwise leaves the process of actually drawing the lines for political districts to the states, which is the process that we are undertaking now. Next slide, please. In most states, this is a process that's done by the state's legislature. And in Arizona, it's the way we did it from statehood in 1912 up until 2000. In 2000, Arizona voters, through the initiative, passed Proposition 106, which created the Arizona Independent Redistricting Commission with the purpose of ending partisan gerrymandering and also ensuring that both sides had a seat at the table when it came to redistricting and having a balanced voice in the process. The commission provides that by the end of February in every year after the census is done, a new commission is to be selected, and that commission serves for the next 10 years to draw the districts that will govern during that time. Slide, please. The Constitution our state constitution requires that the commission be made up of 5 members, no more than 2 of whom may be from the same political party, and of the first four appointments, no more than 2 of whom may be from the same county. Our current members are the Chairwoman Erica Newberg, Independent of Maricopa County, Vice Chairman Derek Watchman, Democrat of Apache County, Commissioner Shireen Lerner, who's here with us, Democrat of Maricopa County, Commissioner David Meal, Republican of Pima County, and Commissioner David York, Republican of Maricopa County. The Arizona Constitution provides a set of guidelines that the commission is supposed to follow in drawing districts. And there's a set of 6 criteria that govern the process. The first and foremost of those is to comply with the United States Constitution and the Federal Voting Rights Act, which protect equal protection and also the rights of minorities to participate equally in American elections and to choose, have an equal ability to choose representatives of their choice. The Constitution also provides that congressional districts and legislative districts are supposed to have equal population to the extent practicable, that they're to be geographically compact and contiguous, also to the extent practicable, and that district boundaries must respect communities of interest to the extent practicable, and likewise that district lines are to use visible geographic features, including city and town lines and existing boundaries and census tracts. And finally, to the extent practicable, the commission is to draw districts that are competitive, insofar as doing so does not detriment the other preceding goals. Next slide, please. Finally, the commission is highly committed to public involvement. It's why we're all here this morning. Any member of the public can submit comments to the commission for its consideration. The meetings are all public. They're live streamed. Any member of the public can watch them live on YouTube. The commission has heard a large amount of public input already. For example, a large number of the comments thus far have been directed toward identifying the communities of interest in Arizona so as to take those into account in the redistricting process. And as we proceed into the map drawing process more specifically, and there will be various iterations of that process, including the grid maps, which we're talking about now, draft maps, and then final maps, every stage of which will present an opportunity for members of the public to both comment on the existing maps that the commission proposes and also submit their own maps and comments for the commission to consider in that process. Next slide. And I think at this point I turn it over to our colleagues from Timmins. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. My name is Mark Flahan with Timmins. I'm our project manager here for the mapping team. Couple tools that we have for you today. If you attended before, you might have seen some of these slides before, so we're not going to go 100% over them. But we really have 4 tools for you that are already out. We have the socioeconomic report, which is demographics for the entire state of Arizona. We have our community of interest report that you might have already seen online. It was released a couple weeks ago. It identifies 182 different community of interests, and it shows the different overlaps, and we'll get into that in a second. The other 2 things that we have is our redistricting system, which will allow you to submit your own maps as the public. And then the mapping hub, which is our centralized location for all things maps. So all the different apps that we talk about today, the redistricting system that we talked today, the grid maps, it's all available in that one centralized location. So the first thing that we'll talk about is socioeconomic report. You probably have already seen this. It's 14 different demographic points for the entire state of Arizona. They're all listed up there right now. So, if you haven't checked it out, I'd highly suggest that you do check it out. The next piece is our community of interest report. Like I said, it was 182 different groups. You can see an example here on the screen for the Catalina foothills out in the Tucson area. And it looked at the count of overlaps for the feedback that we received back for the public. And it shows where the highest amount of overlaps are, which is the dark red, going out to the lowest, which is the lightest color that you can see as a very light, faint outline. So it goes from highest to lowest, and there's 5 different categories. And then we have the redistricting system itself. So anyone create an account. This is open to the public. It's free. You can log in, create your own account. You can see the grid maps. You can create your own map there. So I highly recommend that you go check it out. It is web-based. It is open 24/7. You have the same access to the same system that the commission is using, access to the same data that the commission is using. You have access to the same not only demographics, but competitive data for the elections that the commission is using. So we're putting that all in your hands as the citizen. And at the very bottom, you can see the URL to get to the redistricting system, which is maps.azredistricting.gov/redistricting. And again, this is also a link in the mapping hub that we're going to talk about. So the mapping hub, here is the link to the mapping hub. You can also find it at the commission's website under the maps tab. So there is a link there. So all you need to really remember is irc.az.gov. And that's a screenshot of it. So like I said, it's a centralized location for everything that is mapping. It's web-based, it's available 24/7, 365, so it's publicly accessible to you, and there is no login required. So there's 3 different sections. There's maps and apps, which is where the economic report is, the community of interest report is. We have a section for the redistricting system, which is a centralized location for training, for accessing the redistricting system, for seeing the submitted plans into the redistricting system. And I checked this morning, we have so far 12 plans that have been submitted that are available for you to publicly go look at from different citizens. And then it also has a whole page that talks about the grid map. And at the very bottom of that, you can download the PDFs for every district, legislative and congressional. You can download the GIS data if you want to take it in, put it into a different system. And you can also download all of the competitive and demographic data that we've shown on Tuesday. So here's the grid map up on the screen. It was adopted by the commission at their September 14th meeting. The grid map started at the township median, which is the intersection of 19th Avenue, Grand, and McDowell. We divided the state up into 4 different quadrants, and then we were under the instruction to build the grid in a clockwise manner. So you can see them both right up there. And more information for the grid map is available at that direct link. But if you just go to the hub, you can find it on the top. There is a link right there to get there. With that, I will turn it over to Lori.
Before we move to agenda item 3, I will read the rules of the meeting. Citizens may only speak when recognized by the chair or the presiding officer of the meeting if the chair is absent or otherwise has delegated hearing administration authority. In compliance with Arizona's open meeting law, speakers should confine their statements to the issue on the posted agenda, which is before the commission. Speakers are also requested to limit their comments to approximately 3 minutes. In an effort to allow for as many speakers as possible, the commission may adjust the time limits depending on the amount of speakers requesting to be heard. Additionally, speakers are required to follow proper decorum. Speakers must use appropriate language. Foul and/or abusive language will not be tolerated. Any speaker failing to follow proper decorum or any other guidelines may be asked to leave. Any breach of the peace or disruption of a commission public hearing may be the cause of report to law enforcement. If someone has already expressed the same sentiment you wish to express, you may say so and your comments will be recorded. This is a nonpartisan meeting. Please do not distribute political material in the meeting room. Opposing viewpoints may be expressed by the citizens present. As a courtesy, citizens are reminded to address their comments to the chair and the commission and not to the audience present. Please show respect for all speakers and avoid personal comments. Remember, the commission must hear all sides of an issue in order to make an informed decision. And I'll throw it back to the chair now.
Thank you. We're now going to begin the public comment portion, and we're going to have staff please read the names of the first speaker and then others that are in the queue. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Pro Tem Chair and Commissioner. The first speaker, and I'll be reading the first 4 speakers, so if you would come up closer and get in line for your speaking. The first speaker is Ken Love. Second speaker is Adolfo Esteveste, Rhonda Smith, Natasha Chavez.
Good morning, Madam Chairman and Ms. Lerner, who is the pro tem chairman. My name is Kenneth Love, Ken Love for short. I am a resident of North Central Phoenix. And I want to address a question of community of interest that exists in the community where I reside. It was interesting, yesterday as I was setting out to do a little research on this issue, I went to the North Mountain Preserve and came across an edition of the Moon Valley Tatter. I'd never seen this publication before, but I'll read to you something from a woman by the name of Paula Cullison, who is an international travel photographer and travel writer. She's a member of the Sonoran Arts League. She's published a book called Paula, A Girl from Brooklyn. And what she writes here is, quote, moving to the Moon Valley area near the Shaw Butte Trail in 1974 meant a total lifestyle change for Tim and me and our young family. Climbing down and up the staircases of the New York City subways gave way to hiking up and down Shaw Butte on a regular basis. This new outdoor mode of living was a sharp contrast to the subterranean hours spent commuting to and from wherever. Well, that really kind of amplified, in a sense, what I wanted to address before the commission today, and that is the very relevant community of interest that exists in the Shaw Butte, Creamy Draw, Lookout and Shadow Mountain, and Camelback Mountain areas. I began talking to people about this, quote, community of interest several days ago. And I did it with an eye toward the definition of community of interest, and I'm sure I don't have to remind the commission how that is defined. But you know, in terms of a community of interest, what I've found is that there is a vast community of interest that exists throughout what I would call a 2-mile diameter surrounding the North Mountain Preserve. And those would include the Shaw Butte, Dreamy Draw, Lookout and Shadow Mountain, and Camelback Mountain areas. The reason that I say that with permission from the chair and recognizing the fact that there is a limited number of people in the audience, I'd like at least another 2 minutes to testify on these issues.
Well, we'll just give you 1 minute because we do have others, and we have 2 other locations that are also waiting to speak.
Very good then. What we have is homeowners associations, businesses, bicycling groups, hiking groups, homeowners who simply want a vista to the preserves and to what beauty exists there. And they do, I think, command the definition of a community of interest that this commission should consider in redistricting in the Mountain Preserve area. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. My name's Arnold Fuchibeste. I'm a resident of Tempe. I wanted to address 4 items quickly. First of all, I was the executive director of the first commission, the 2001 commission, and our objective was to provide maximum possible accessibility to the entire state and all various segments of the community. I recognize that with today's technology, you're doing fantastic job reaching out with technology. But I want to caution and remind you that there are segments of our community that do not have access to the technology or the ability to utilize it. And I would hope that you don't forget that as you go forward. We tend to get too enamored with the new technology and forget socioeconomic groups that do not have access to it. I specifically today would point out that there are no hearings in South Phoenix or Maryvale or the West Valley, which could very easily be remedied with setting up a hearing at Southmont Community College, Estrella Community College, and so forth. So I would remind you of that. I have a question, and that is with regard to mapping. Will there be face-to-face participation as we have today in the mapping process, or will it all be via the internet? If so, again, I want to emphasize the fact that there are communities of interest that do not have access to computers. And I would urge you to not forget that and continue with face-to-face meetings. Finally, after 20 years of seeing the results of the first commission, the end products of the mapping, and the second commission, I find that unfortunately, with all the good work that was done, and all the effort that was put in, we see that the end product, that is the elected officials, today's world seem to be totally at opposite ends of the spectrum, and you don't see much give and take and consultation, cooperation, etc. There seems to be just diametrically opposed because the districts are so comfortably set up with non-competition that they don't seem to have a need to reach out to anybody but their own immediate supporters. So my point is that competitiveness, although it's listed at the end of the list of things to address, I would hope that you put that at the forefront. And that comes from 20 years of seeing the results of all the well-intentioned efforts, including the federal government, the Department of Justice, the civil rights legislation, where requirements were met to include minority elected officials in the elected process. But what the end result has been is this isolation, and I would hope that you put that at the front of those 5 items: competition and competitiveness. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Rhonda Smith. Thank you so much for having these public hearings. I really appreciate that you're giving us this opportunity to have a voice in this process. It's so important and will affect every Arizonan for the next 10 years. I just want to go on the record and say I am a homeowner and have lived in Ahwatukee Foothills for 19 years. Ahwatukee Foothills holds a very special place in my heart because this is where I raised my family and build close relationships with neighbors and friends in the area. I also do lots of volunteer work. My daughter went to school here in Ahwatukee and started preschool. She's now in college. I work, shop, frequent the local restaurants, and attend church in our small community. What I love about Ahwatukee Foothills is the small town feel of the area, and I hope it stays that way. To accomplish this, I think Ahwatukee should separate from Phoenix and Tempe. We don't have a lot in common with these cities. They are urban, we are suburban. They have high tech and large businesses. We have more family-owned businesses. I feel Ahwatukee has more in common with the city of Maricopa, especially with their students attending our schools in our areas. Ahwatukee is a small suburb community and not at all like the city of Phoenix and Tempe in size or feel. I would like the boundaries for Ahwatukee to stay west of I-10 along South Mountain, stay contiguous, and continue south towards the Indian Reservation in the city of Maricopa, where we have most commonalities. In 2011, the Commission failed to take any of this into consideration and did not follow the Arizona Constitution. I respectfully ask the Commission to follow the criteria outlined in our state's Constitution to maintain equal population, community of interest, and fairness. Thank you so much, and have a good day.
Okay, I'll just go. Before I talk about the congressional districts, I'll briefly talk about the legislative districts. I'm in West Phoenix, and I believe that that West Phoenix should have a district where most of West Phoenix is together, just because I believe that would be a community of interest. Most folks that live in West Phoenix shop, play, and do stuff in West Phoenix or along the eastern, more of the Phoenix portion of the I-10, where yes, there may be some similarities with Western Valley towns, but I just believe that they should stay together. And also, I'm also part of the majority minority community in Phoenix, and I want to make sure that my family and my neighborhood can vote for people who look like us. And to make that happen, there needs to be a Phoenix-based majority minority congressional district. It needs to include Levine, South Phoenix, West Phoenix, and Central Phoenix. The grid map splits up these communities, but we are connected. We are a diverse community with a lot in common, and keeping us together will strengthen our voting power. It's far too easy for hardworking, modest income family neighborhoods like mine to get ignored. That's why I'm here to say today to make sure that we get heard in this redistricting process, and that we will get heard in Congress too. Thank you.
Now we will take it over to the Prescott location, just to let everybody know that we do have a Spanish interpreter at the Prescott location. So Alex.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Commissioners. My first three speakers will be City Council member Holly Plug, Maria Lineman, and Connie Levinson.
Good morning, Chairman Newberg and Commissioners. Can you hear me? Because we're having a lot of feedback on our end from the previous testifiers. I can't hear you at all if you're responding to me.
We can hear you.
Thank you very much. I am wearing two hats today. My first hat is as a member of the City Council of the City of Sedona. We read a statement to you at the hearing that was held in Sedona about a month ago, I guess now. And we are meeting on Tuesday as a council, and we will be updating that statement and presenting it to you on October 7th in Flagstaff. But just to give you a preview, based on the grid maps, because they were mostly county oriented, the city of Sedona, a population of under 10,000 people, would sit in 2 legislative districts. So the lines are drawn by county, and we are in 2 counties. This was remedied by the commission, prior commissions, and I'm confident that you will remedy it as well. But we will be presenting a formal statement to you in October 7th. Now I'm taking off my elected official hat and I'm putting on my public citizen hat. And I came to talk to you today primarily about the mapping software. I took the training that was provided, and a number of people who are interested in assuring that our maps are fair and our maps reflect our communities of interest took the training as well, and several people communicated to me during the training things like, I quit, or this is far beyond my ability. So we were very frustrated. And I'm familiar with the Esri software, the GIS software from my professional capacity, and it is an excellent product, and it's a very sophisticated system, but the normal person cannot really use it. So out of frustration, we decided a way in which to communicate with you would be to draft a petition, and I'd like to read you that petition. And we will submit this to you electronically. As of today, as of this moment, there are 584 signatories. And this is what it says. The Independent Redistricting Commission has provided mapping software that is unusable by the general public. The process of drawing new district lines includes public input. The public cannot give input on the maps with this unusable tool the IRC has provided. Without public input, which is required by law, this is not a fair and transparent process. We would like the IRC to simplify its mapping software so it is usable by the general public, including the ability to submit single district maps. We would like the IRC to allow paper maps for those who prefer this method. We also want an assurance that the paper maps will be given the same consideration as maps submitted through the IRC mapping system. And the reason that we put that in there is because paper maps were submitted during the listening tour, and as of today, they're not available on the IRC website. So the paper maps that were submitted a month ago or longer are not yet digitized and available for us to look at. So I know Commissioner Newberg, you said the other day, or Chairman Newberg, you said the other day that you all were having problems with the system as well, and we should just submit paper maps in an envelope. However, are those going to be given the same weight and the same consideration? And so we would ask you to please assure us that this in fact will happen. Thank you very much.
Equal. Can they hear? Alex, can you hear us?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. I would like to reassure the public that each and every submission will be considered. We have a wonderful challenge here in Arizona, meaning that we're on the cutting edge of technology. We are on the cutting edge of receiving digital feedback that for some in our state, it's yielding unprecedented responses. We understand for some, and that includes me, the technological challenges are intimidating. Submit your paper maps. We're working with mapping to figure out how best to not only convey that to the commissioners, that's already going on. We're figuring out a way to convey that information to the public. But when you're concerned, let me reassure you that your chairwoman sitting here digesting your information is sitting here with my own personal notes about legislative districts and where their boundaries are. I digest information so similarly to many in the community that are frustrated. Every single language, Spanish, Native American, other languages, digital, English, words, we will do our due diligence to study each and every form. We have weeks to go with digesting information. We are your partners in this. So thank you.
Good morning. My name is Maria Lynham. I'm a retired project manager and I've lived in Prescott for 21 years. My zip is 86301, which is in LD1 and CD4. Thank you all for the opportunity to share my views with you today. We know that grid maps are the starting point for drawing the draft maps and eventually the final maps for our congressional and legislative districts. According to the Arizona Constitution, the process to arrive at these maps is expected to be transparent, carried out in public, so we can feel confident that it's free of political bias and we expect fair and competitive maps. As previous people have said, my first concern has to do with the mapping software that's been offered to help adjust the boundaries of the grid maps when proposing new districts. It is difficult to use. I'm not a mapper, and I've taken the trainings. I've looked at the various lessons available, but I've had no success in creating a map that eventually meets all the required criteria. Chairman Newberg, thank you so much for your comments regarding paper maps. And that's a concern that I have. Your suggestion, just put a map on the envelope, just put a map in an envelope, put a stamp on it and mail it in. There is no suggestion that it be accompanied by any text to explain why the lines are being drawn, who is submitting it, etc. And I'm really concerned, even with your comments, about how mappers are going to input these paper maps. Are they going to be logged in before being input into the system? How will we know that they've even been input? The question is, what process is in place to accept maps from the public? Once that is accomplished, in what format will they in what format will they be presented to you, the commissioners? Why is this important? Well, you've just said public input cannot be disregarded or considered of lesser importance than those submitted through the current mapping tool. If they are not handled with consideration, then maps that are proposed by powerful individuals or organizations that have been drawn by mapping professionals to promote their own agendas will have a great advantage. I'm going to show you 3 maps, and this is pretty pathetic, but this is what I have, that one might pop in an envelope and submit to you. They're shown now for illustration purposes only. So this one is the current LD1 map, and on it I have handwritten a request that the IRC keep these boundaries as much as possible. No population figures are included. The second and third maps are again illustration of 2 handwritten notes on a map that I drew actually in Redistrictor. This is for illustration only. I'm not suggesting this. But if you got this in the mail, what would you do with it? The third map has, again, drawn on Redistrictor, a map that includes the population of the map, what is required, and the differences, which happens to be 65 people in this instance. But anyway, I'm concerned that you have a plan. What are you expecting from us? So my last concern is that you, the commissioners, came to the table last week, just weeks before the draft mapping is to begin, to make your calendar. I really would have thought that that would have been done months ago. And I believe that you've blocked out approximately 7 days to make maps that will affect us for the next 10 years. If someone gets ill or is unable to attend a session, the allotted days will be truncated. Excuse me, my time is up. However, let me say that you have got to consider the process, and we have not seen it. So even though you're doing a great job reaching out to us, you have to look internally as to what's coming up in the future. So thank you.
Good morning, commissioners. My name is Connie Levinson. A lot of feedback. I've been a resident of Sedona for the last 20 years. I'm not going to repeat what the previous two people have stated. I would like to go back and talk about communities of interest. Sedona interacts with Cottonwood and Flagstaff regularly. Some of you may have heard me make this point at the Sedona meeting about a month ago. But we are in a very difficult situation. We mean no disrespect to Prescott, but we are not really allied with them physically or in any other way. We had to get up very early to drive here this morning. It's usually about an hour and a half ride. We go to Flagstaff when we need to shop. Our doctors are there, or they're in Cottonwood. Our community is the Verde Valley and Flagstaff. We really don't fit in well with Prescott, both geographically and I suspect in terms of interest. I'm happy to anticipate reuniting the two halves of Sedona into one, because we do not really describe ourselves as being in one county or the other. We simply say we live in Sedona. But the reality is Sedona itself does not have a lot of the things people need, particularly medical care. And of course, for those of us who live this way, shopping. If you want to actually try something on before you buy it, we can't use Amazon, although we give them a good run. All I'm saying basically is to please think of us with the communities with which we interact. It's as simple as that. We fit with them. Right now, we are in LD6 and CD1, just to keep things straight. We would just like to see our legislative district represent who we are, where we are, and what we do. And I noticed that 3 of you are from Maricopa County. One thing I would really ask you to think about, and this is not a technical thing, Northern Arizona is often the sort of poor stepchild of the southern counties. Phoenix, Tucson, the Valley villages and cities seem to get a lot of attention, and sometimes we feel that we're forgotten about. I am not versatile enough with this map-making system to be of any use to anyone, so I'm going to let the people who are better at it try. But what I do ask is that you think of us as an entity. We are a real community of interest, and I beg you to think of us that way, because if not, we will have 10 years being uncomfortable, I think. And I know your job is very tough, and all of us are sort of hammering at you about a number of different things. And I'm sorry for that, because I know this type of service is never easy. But please, think of us as your northern relatives, and we kind of like to stay with the people we see all the time. Maybe it's as simple as that and not at all complicated. So, Madam Chair, the rest of you, please give a thought to the North. We would really appreciate it. Thank you so much for all your hard work.
And I'll hand it back to Phoenix.
Thank you, Alex. I'm testing the Webex microphone. Can you hear me, Alex?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I'm going to call up the next 4 speakers. The first one is Tatiana Pena. The next one is G. Jerick, Kate Saunders, Beth Ann.
Check, can you hear me? All right, good morning, Madam Chair and the Commission. Thank you for coming here. It really means a lot, especially because I know that there's opinions out there, but this is actually a bit of politics. So you, some people say it's at 32nd, but it actually goes to the Tempe border. And so we're not in Tempe, we're in Phoenix, which is happening. So thank you for, this is the closest that you've gotten to our area. Thank you. I am first generation American. My parents immigrated from Central America to South Phoenix. I was born and raised in South Phoenix. I am married and a mother of 4 girls in South Phoenix. I'm involved in the community through church and community service. I'm here to share my insights about our respective legislative district 27, as it is right now, and the proposals that I saw with the grid map. Currently, the district is made up of South Phoenix, Levine, Guadalupe, Gila River Reservation, a small portion of downtown Phoenix, and a small Wichita P. I do not know how this district will change at the end. I am here to ask that South Phoenix stays together and not be split. Also, we are in Elwood. This is Elwood Precinct. This is, again, like I said, it's a little portion of South Phoenix. Not many people know what it actually is because it's not Tempe. I'm also asking that South Phoenix and Levine please remain together, not just in the not just in congressional district, but legislative districts. I'm grateful for this other woman that spoke up on behalf of the community because we share that same view that our communities are a strong community of interest together. Why are we a strong community of interest? We have the highest population of Black voters here, African American voters. I did a quick search between Broadway and Baseline in the South Phoenix area. They say it's around 56% African Americans. So that's a high percentage there. If you divide this community, you divide that voice. We also have at least a 60% percentage of Latino community here as well. It's somewhere in Phoenix. I couldn't find the exact for South Phoenix, but it's high. And that would be divided up as well. So we have similar church boundaries for districts. We have similar school boundaries. In the grid maps, I saw that South Phoenix was actually divided into 2, and I saw that South Phoenix was actually divided from Levine. That would drastically weaken our voice. It would drastically weaken us as a high minority population with a lot of lower income and middle socioeconomic families. It would weaken us. And there's also another portion where you place part of South Phoenix with Ahwatukee. As much as I love Ahwatukee, very different cultures, and I'm afraid that they wouldn't understand the needs that we are having here on this side of the mountain. So these are the things that I wanted to share. I ask that you follow the Constitution when setting our lines, to try to really consider how important this community of interest is. And I ask that our communities be treated with fairness. Thank you for your time. Questions?
I have one follow-up question that you don't need to answer now, but I would appreciate it if you could direct this feedback to our staff. We are looking at locations for the final 30-day. We have challenges in terms of COVID and having physical distancing, et cetera. We do want to look at smaller locations, but we also have a responsibility to be in areas that are within physical driving distances with a volume of population. So if you do have specific recommendations, we are all ears and are actively scrutinizing how we can come to where the population is, and it's mutually, working for us.
Okay. Well, this is pretty, the farthest west I've seen you guys go. I would recommend somewhere in between South Phoenix and like the West Valley, because the West Valley wants to be represented too. Maybe I'll look into it, but maybe Phoenix College might be a consideration.
We'll have staff take notes on that.
South Mountain too.
Lean into it because we are doing a live watch opportunity, and if you don't speak into the first microphone, those that are listening out there on the live Webex cannot hear you.
Before I begin, I submitted some paper maps, and I just want to make sure that you have access to those.
Great, thank you. Great, so my name is Kate Saunders. I'm a queer constituent of LD24 and CD7. I recently finished my Master's of Science from ASU. I'm a deeply committed member of my downtown Phoenix community. I'm an artist and organizer, and I currently work with Equality Arizona, who's the statewide LGBTQ advocacy group. I spoke at previous hearings, but today I'm here to speak about the importance of recognizing and respecting LGBTQ community across the state in this redistricting process, but especially where we are geographically connected and condensed. And today I'm speaking specifically about the greater Phoenix area, downtown Phoenix, and then the Melrose district. The last hearing I spoke at, you said, show us the maps. And so today we have shown you the maps. Before I explain those maps, I do want to say that we're in alignment at EQAZ with what our other partners like ACE have submitted in a letter. Speakers from Indivisible Arizona have spoken up about members here today, that the Timmins tool for the online mapping is extremely inaccessible. I'm an overeducated white woman who's 31. I'm young. I know how to use technology. English is my first language, and it is still excruciating to use. Those of us, we are also working with mapping specialists, and we are still confused about how to get maps to you. So while your good intentions are useful and we appreciate it, we need clear procedures. And we need transparency, and that's how you establish trust. So the data that you have in front of you is compiled using LGBTQ owned and allied businesses, recreation areas. Those are listed in the Greater Phoenix Equality Chamber of Commerce. LGBTQ historical sites that have been listed by state historians, health clinics that serve the specific needs of us as LGBTQ community, as well as arts collectives, cultural hubs, parks, and community spaces for youth. We have to do all this work because we're not even represented in the census. And so it's too easy for officials and members of this community to overlook us because we're not counted for in our needs. So we've compiled this data for you, and we appreciate you looking at it. Map A, you can see there, is a zoomed out focus of Greater Phoenix area. And then we've plotted over 400 points across the state. Over 200 of those sites are located in downtown Phoenix, in the Phoenix area. Over 150 are right there in downtown. And then over 53, if you zoom in on, I think then it goes to B and C, it zooms in. Over 53 sites are located in that Melrose district on 7th Avenue in the stretch between Indian School and Camelback. And we're condensed around those sites, not only because we share in community and mutual care and education, but also our access and sharing of information around public services and our ability to advocate for ourselves and one another. So how does this relate to the maps, to the congressional legislative maps and the grid maps? In the current congressional maps, we're right on the border of CD7 and CD9. And that's only if you're looking at this Melrose district specifically. And then we're also on the border of LD24 and LD30. So, and then in the grid maps, it looks like we're included east with Tempe. That would be great. If you can keep us together, keep us whole, do not split us up, and keep us in districts where we're values aligned, where we can best advocate for our needs through these state and federal systems. Or if you're going to include us in the west side of Phoenix, where we're also values aligned, because many LGBTQ people are also people of color and also live in West Phoenix, then that would be appropriate, but we cannot be considered part of South or North. We need to be in that west, the east or the west places, and we need to be kept together. So I just want to say my final statement is that finally, in 2021, you have this opportunity to respect us and recognize us as a community of interest.
Hello, everyone. I go by G. I'm a performer, a movement instructor, and a health professional. I've lived in Phoenix for 7 years. And in the course of that time, and I'm also so gay. In the course of that time, I have forged deep connections in our queer and transgender community. I perform regularly in the Melrose District. I coach queer folks in the betterment of their health, and I am deeply involved with a mutual aid effort called Nourish Phoenix. We bring free groceries to queer and transgender community members every week. I was called to appear here today when my friend Kate Saunders with Equality AZ told me that the redistricting of Phoenix would be happening soon, and that we would, as a queer community, be greatly affected if we did not show our faces here today and prove our existence, because we are, again, not accounted for at all on the census. This came as no surprise to me, as the, queer and transgender people have been woefully erased through the entirety of our history, and sort of compounded the importance of presenting my body to you today to prove that we exist and that we have needs. So my ask today is that you not only consider that we are alive, we are families, we are communities with a whole host of needs and demands, just like every other 182 communities of interest that were identified. Not only that, but the maps that Equality AZ has created are used as a reference point in the inclusion of queer people in this process of redistricting. As Kate said, this is the first time in the history of the city that you have an opportunity to consider our existence and meet our needs, and the work has been done for you by us to adequately acknowledge where those needs land geographically and on our lives and bodies. In the pursuit of our health care, in the seeking of inclusive education, thorough sexuality education for our children that are in schools, in our access to healthy food, in our protection against discrimination, all of those consequences of not being represented land on our bodies and our lives. And we need our legislative leverage in order to ensure that all of those needs can be met. We are working from a deficit, to say the least. And I am not here speaking to you because I believe in the puppetry of the government or the process that we follow in order to redistrict. And that is compounded by the fact that we're not even noted in this process. So I'm not here because of that I think that you hearing me is going to make a difference or make up for all of the lost history that we have. I'm here because I am in solidarity with all of the queer and transgender people that I have lost to the cracks in this system that could not provide a safe place for them. I'm here because I would be remiss if I did not take advantage of one opportunity to prove to you that not only do I exist, but I am deeply in touch with the needs of my community. Thank you for listening.
I just want to make a response. I want to thank you for both of you for taking the time to submit that specific data. It's actually like super helpful for us to geographically understand these communities of interest. And you mentioned education and school districts as we're crafting boundaries and putting like-minded communities together. School boundaries actually are an interesting, relevant data point. And so I know you've already done tremendous work. Thank you, we have it. But if you even want to submit more data, and or everybody else listening as they're submitting data about their communities of interest, talking about school boundaries also adds to the context of your community of interest. So thank you for this specific data. Yes, you coming up really makes a difference, regardless of it's not just an academic point. It actually makes a difference in the here and now.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Beth Ann. I live in downtown Phoenix in the 7th Congressional District and the 30th Legislative District. I'm a fourth-year student at Arizona State University studying environmental sustainability. I'm a member of the LGBTQ community, a local artist and performer, and I'm someone who is deeply invested in the safety and well-being of my community. Like G, I'm also part of Nourish Phoenix, and every week we work to get free food and groceries to our members of the community. I'm here today because it is absolutely critical that my community is kept together through this redistricting process. LGBTQ plus people face distinct challenges, and it is essential that we are able to come together in the eyes of our representatives to protect our basic safety and our ability to live our lives. A 2020 study found that 62% of transgender people and 69% of non-binary people experienced workplace discrimination that year. This same study found that 1 in 3 transgender individuals had to actually educate their doctors in order to receive appropriate health care. While these statistics reflect nationwide phenomena, please hear me when I say that workplace discrimination, inaccess to healthcare, and inaccess to other basic necessities are very real and consistent challenges faced by myself, my dearest friends, and loved ones on a day-to-day basis. Equality AZ has been hard at work collecting data to produce some of the first maps to document the distribution of the LGBTQ community across the state of Arizona ever. I please urge you to use these maps to their full capacity during this process to recognize and protect LGBTQ plus Arizonans and our ability to advocate for our rights. I thank you for your time today.
I'm going to send it back over to Alex and Prescott.
Thank you, Michelle. The next 3 speakers we have are Kristen Baumgartner, Stephanie Voss, and Maria Alina Dunn. The next speaker is Kristen Baumgartner. Okay, so then Stephanie Voss.
Good morning. My name is Stephanie Voss. I live in Prescott, Arizona, and I'm happy to be here. I want to thank the commission and also the interpreters for being here. I really appreciate that. I don't have a lot to say. I just want to really reiterate some of the points that have been made. I was happy to hear from the speaker from the first Independent Redistricting Commission, who made excellent points about both accessibility and the idea of putting competitiveness of our districts at the forefront. I think that's a very important thing. I also want to talk a little bit about the other requirements for our redistricting, noticing visible geographic features, competitiveness, and socioeconomic status. Prescott, as a community, and again, no offense to my friends from Sedona, has very little in common with Flagstaff and Sedona. If you come to Prescott, you may notice a lack of crystal shops, for example. We're not the same kind of people. And we also don't have the same interests geographically. If you notice where Mingus Mountain comes and separates us, the people on the other side of the mountain, in the Verde Valley and in the north, have something that we desperately don't have in Prescott, which is water. And the idea that people are making decisions about our future in that we don't actually have the representation as our own community, now that we're starting to get the population to deserve it, is really unfair. I think that we deserve to have our community recognized. I also want to say that the idea of using county boundaries is, I don't know who drew these counties. I don't know the history of the state of Arizona, but I know that anthropologically and through demographics, that these boundaries don't honestly make a lot of sense. The idea that Sedona should be divided into for legislative purposes is just silly. And to have our next 10 years governed by artifacts of history that we don't have any control over makes little sense. And I know that there are people on this commission who are interested in this, and I am so grateful that you're listening. And the last point I want to make, and I don't really know how to emphasize this enough, you had a speaker here from your technology division, and again, no offense, I'm sure they're doing a great job, but whatever maps you have and whatever outreach you have to allow people to participate in this process, those people who couldn't get up on a Saturday and come here, the people who have to work, the people who don't have computers, have no way to respond to this. And even the people who do, I heard from somebody who said she was 31. I'm 61, and I've been using computers since you had to use 2 floppy disks. I've come a long way. Computers have come a long way. Technology has come a long way, but I was absolutely incapable of submitting a map online. And the idea that you have to go to some special training in order to make your opinion and your needs heard is just appalling. You shouldn't have to sit through a special training. I didn't have the time to do it. I'm still working. But I can't, maybe now I could do a paper map because I can handle paper, and knowing that you're going to be listening to it and including it in some way is very helpful. And I appreciate that feedback. But I hope that you take our existence into account and make a fair decision that's going to allow for some competitive districts and allow for people of both of the major parties and all of the other parties that aren't even considered here anymore to be heard. And thank you very much.
Hello, and thank you, Chairman Newberg and Commissioners, for the opportunity to speak to you today. My name is Kristen Baumgartner. I live in Prescott, which is in Yavapai County, and I'm here today to respond to the grid maps that you approved at your meeting on September 14th, and also to address the community of interest. By way of background, I'm a retired communication and marketing director, and I spend my time doing volunteer work for my community and my church. Prescott boasts residents that live here since their birth, and also transplants like myself, although I've been here for 7 years. We're drawn here for the rural lifestyle and the beauty of Northern Arizona, and as one of the other speakers says, we are different than the rest of the state. The cities in Yavapai County and Northern Arizona serve the surrounding smaller towns across a number of areas. Some things that we share in common are our school systems, which you mentioned before, law enforcement, and fire district cooperation. We have shopping, entertainment, and recreational activities that are enjoyed by our residents and visitors here in Northern Arizona. Much of Northern Arizona is covered in pine forest and grasslands, and our residents are deeply concerned about land use, preservation, and water preservation and use. We have excellent medical facilities. We have a VA hospital here that serves Northern Arizona. You're starting to sense a theme here of Northern Arizona. I reviewed the district maps approved in 2012, and I must say that some odd decisions were made, and it seems that the communities of interest may have been discounted in lieu of a focus on competition. I watched the grid map video from your September 14th meeting. The ability to divide our state by population down to the individual level demonstrates its capability, but as you've heard today, it is a little confusing. What isn't completely clear from the grid maps is the communities of interest. If I understand the approved congressional grid map correctly, it appears that you have recognized the communities of interest in the rural counties of our state. Northern and Eastern Arizona is grouped into one district. That makes sense given the criteria required by our Constitution, and I support that. If I understand the legislative District 5 grid map correctly, you grouped our county into one district. Again, I'm not quite sure what's going on with Sedona, as someone else many have already talked about, but I think it's important to keep us together. That meets the requirements, and I support that. There is a small portion of Maricopa County, it looks like the more rural area, and I think that's important too, that they are represented. Maricopa includes a variety of different people, but if you're going to pull that into our districts, it's important not to include the metropolitan part of Maricopa. I think we're very different in how we think and feel. I strongly urge you to keep communities of interest top of mind when finalizing your congressional and legislative districts, and I thank you for your time today.
Good morning, Chair Newberg, Commissioners Lerner and York. Thank you for once again giving us, the public at large, the opportunity to share our views regarding the recently drawn grid maps and about the work that lies ahead. My name is Maria Elena Dunn, M-A-R-I-A, capital E-L-E-N-A, Dunn, D-U-N-N. I live in Prescott. My zip code is 86303, CD4, LD1. First, let me congratulate the Commission on the great work being done by both the outreach as well as the media teams. We are finally seeing the fruits of their labor in both traditional and social media. Redistricting is in the news. We are thrilled. Thank you. Nevertheless, in my view, their excellent work is being marred by the fact that the public is being unintentionally misled. This concern is being echoed by many, both in the comments during the regular meetings as well as in the Contact Us and today. Yes, the public is being encouraged by the IRC to participate in the restructuring of the grid maps into final, quote unquote, CD and LD maps, but very few in the public at large can manage the tool that they have been given in order to accomplish that. The mapping software that has been offered to help adjust the boundaries is just too difficult to use. You have heard this ad nauseum. I'm sorry. I am blessed with friends who had advanced degrees in software development, data analysis, statistics, city planning, demography, and even they are having a very hard time of us. The rest of us have no chance. That is why you find me here today, mapless. In order to ensure that the public is confident of the final product and to limit the potential litigation resulting from it being otherwise, the IRC and its mapping consultants must find a way to accept maps submitted by other means and make sure that these are incorporated into the drawing process in a way that the public sees clearly, so as to feel confident that their effort is being taken seriously. Transparency and trust are primordial to your success. It is imperative that this effort by the public not be perceived as being considered of lesser importance, or worse yet, being disregarded, than that which is likely to be submitted through the current tool by groups of organizations which can afford to hire professionals, perhaps to promote specific agendas. The fact that to date, and we heard this earlier in the presentation, only 12 maps have been submitted by the public through the software provided is very telling. If what you say is what you mean, that you want real public input, allowing for other ways to submit the redrawn maps and to have them seriously considered and included is the only way forward. I encourage the commissioners who may not have done so already to try the software that has been made public and to see for yourselves the difficulties that we, the people, are having. Keep in mind that you have received more support and training than any one of us. Before closing, let me reiterate what I said to this commission back on 27 July 2021 regarding my vision for redrawn CD4. I know you heard that we are a cohesive unit. Actually, you just heard it again, and should remain so, and that we have nothing in common with areas of Maricopa County. In fact, our Quad Cities and immediate surrounding areas have a lot more in common with northern Maricopa than with Mojave and the Colorado River communities. We are not as rural as you may have heard, and a district that uses I-17 corridor to achieve contiguity is one to contemplate. Maybe, if I ever master the art of map drawing, I will be able to send you one showing what I mean. A final parting thought, if I may be so bold as to proffer advice. You have volunteered to be part of an onerous process. We are indebted to you. But please bear in mind as you go on this redistricting effort that you must find the time to be deeply engaged and to give serious consideration to the guidelines that you provide to your administrative team and most especially to the mapping consultant. At this last IRC meeting on Tuesday, 21 September, it was said quite clearly that they look for you for macro and micro frameworks, as well as the nuances of how they move forward, in particular this time as to how they handle other map submissions. It could be that some of you think that since they are under contract to you, they should be the ones coming with advice and proposals, but perhaps not. More importantly, when you give guidance, ensure that they fully comply. it was seemingly not the case regarding a small aspect of the drawing of the grid maps. That misstep was of no serious consequence. However, that will not be the case as we go to the final and legislative maps. The consequences of any misstep at that point will be long-term with us for the next 10 years. Caveat, your legacy is at stake. Thank you very much for giving me the time to address you. I look forward to seeing you here in person in November. Good weekend to all.
I have one speaker left, Gina Tyndall.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Commissioners. Thank you for taking our public input today. I would like to talk to you about the competitiveness element of the redistricting criteria in regard to drawing maps. One of the first speakers today petitioned the IRC to put competitiveness at the top of your list for consideration when drawing maps. I believe this request to be inappropriate since the wording in the state constitution says, and I'm paraphrasing, competitiveness should be considered as long as it is not detrimental to the other goals of the redistricting criteria. I believe that means that competitiveness cannot be put ahead of any of the other redistricting criteria. I would very much appreciate your attention to ensuring that all elements of the redistricting criteria are appropriately implemented and not give undue weight to one over the other. Thank you very much.
That is all the speakers, and I hand it back to Phoenix.
And just a reminder to those that are listening live on our Webex, we take the public comments as long as we are here. So those of you that feel like you can't show up at the designated time, as long as we're still online and doing the public comments and you have time to drive to the locations, we are still here. I have 3 more speakers, Pro Tem Chair and Commissioners. The next speaker is Tega Maidon, and the following speaker is Suki Kita, and then Sandra Dowling.
Good morning, Commissioners. I am Tega Maido. I'm of Nigerian heritage, and I go to ASU here in Tempe studying electrical engineering. I live in Tempe. I'll start by echoing the comments on accessibility. I definitely agree on those because coming to the hearings reminds me of engineering class being the only Black student there. It's an engineering joke. In regards to software issues, I also echo those issues. But I also think that I also think it'd be great to offer solutions. I'm an engineer, and we are very particular about our software. I like programming in C++. I don't want to touch Java. For modeling, I like Pro-E software. I don't touch SolidWorks. So I think a great solution you guys could consider would be to provide a tutorial that shows people how to import the so-called shapefiles from the software they are very comfortable with into the mapping software. I use Dave's Redistricting app software. I think it's a very great software. If you guys had a tutorial on how to import that data into the mapping software, I feel that would be a great solution to the issues with that. In regards to minority representation, I believe that the current demographics with the current maps from the last sessions should stay the same. However, the fact that the current LD13 is the fastest growing district in the state, I believe the Commission should seriously consider creating a very competitive and majority-minority district in the West Valley, consisting of the cities of Avondale, Goodyear, and Buckeye. I believe using that core, you can create an LD that's majority-minority and very extremely competitive. I have created LD maps and CD maps myself, and I will be sending them to the Commission with the software as soon as I can figure that out. Thank you, and I look forward to this process.
Thank you. Just a follow-up on your comment. We are going to be, on Tuesday, we are going to be demonstrating how to upload the shapefiles. So hopefully that will help those of you who are using other systems. So you'll be able to see how to actually move those shapefiles into our system. So thank you for that suggestion.
Yeah, because I just want to reiterate something pretty cool is going on in Arizona. I know it's so frustrating that we can't figure out the ESRI stuff, but for those who can, like, they have access to the very same data that the commissioners and the mapping team are using. And for everybody else that can't, we are deeply searching for solutions to import that data. So at the end of the day, when we're done, our goal is for Arizona to be able to incorporate all forms of data more than any other state. So as all the frustrations we're hearing, we're taking notes and we're truly wanting to solve all of it and be as accessible as possible.
And just another quick follow-up as part of that, because we've heard a lot about paper and people submitting by paper. We are working on that as well. And this coming week, we should have opportunities for you to submit if you want to just submit by your own district, which many people have said, I don't want to worry about the whole state, I just want my district. We're going to be providing opportunities for you to do so. Those will be posted online sometime this coming week, where each district will be identified so you can post what you would like to see for your district as well as comments by paper, and then those will be submitted to the commissioners. So just as another opportunity that we're saying, we're looking at every opportunity that's out there.
Good morning. I'm Suki Keita, and I live in Congressional District 6 and Legislative District 20. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm an educator, an artist, and the mother of a queer daughter. I've taught in Arizona's public schools for 10 years before moving down here to Phoenix to teach college. I've also earned my Master of Fine Arts at the University of Arizona. I'm here to speak as an ally in support of our LGBTQ communities, although my own identity is not defined by binary limits. I want LGBTQ strongholds to be kept together, and I want redistricting to reflect their power as a voting bloc, because they have always stood for our collective liberation. I want to elect representatives who won't act against the well-being of my family and friends. I want to elect representatives who will stand against attempts to hurt this community through misguided policy. Our collective freedoms are at stake when we legislate hate, when we turn people away from health care, cause them to avoid seeking care, or discriminate against them in the workplace and threaten their safety in other ways. We have friends, including community leaders and business owners, who have left the state in the past 10 years because they've wanted to have their rights respected as married couples. I've witnessed the brain drain of the talent in LGBTQ communities when people decided to move on to greener pastures. My daughter is part of the brain drain I speak of. She's just left for LA and may not be coming back. We have to think about the quality of life that we can provide for people and what statements we make when we put exclusionary policies in place. I raised my daughter here in Arizona, and she attended public schools exclusively. One of the most powerful moments for her was hearing a teacher's story when she revealed that she had just married the love of her life, another woman. For youth who sense a crisis of representation, not seeing people like themselves in leadership, this was a transformative moment. I've taught in settings where students have felt safe enough with me to express their fears and anxieties of feeling unloved, ostracized, and discriminated against. They haven't always found the resources they need, and they've struggled. And those who belong to minority racial groups or other marginalized groups struggle even more. LGBTQ Americans experience significant health issues, including mental health issues, and especially during this pandemic. Youth in particular have been affected by the sudden isolation they've experienced. This is a community of interest I want to see empowered. They have not been counted by the census, but they count. Please review the maps from Equality Arizona. I look forward to seeing the outcomes. Thank you for your kind attention. Listening is the key to compassion, and compassion is key to moving forward in our world today.
Good morning. My name is Sandra Dowling. I am the Legislative District Chairman for the Arizona Republican Party in Legislative District 13, which is in the West Valley, primarily the Goodyear, Litchfield Park, and Buckeye areas. The original maps that came out based on population, I've met with legislators and I've met with other members of my community to discuss maybe some of the things that we could do to make that more reflective of the communities of interest that we represent. In the West Valley, Luke Air Force Base is a critical component to our economic prosperity. Most of the people that work at Luke Air Force Base live in our communities, whether it's in that Buckeye area or whether it's in Goodyear, Litchfield Park, or even Surprise. Our district right now, based on the population, has extended all the way over to 75th Avenue. It goes from basically the I-10 up to Peoria and over to, I believe it's Jackrabbit. Maybe a little bit further west. But in doing so, one of our large communities that is part of our economic engine is Verrado. And Verrado is an area that is fairly new. It is part of Buckeye, but it is in the fastest growing area of the West Valley, one of the fastest growing areas. And I'm sure you're well aware that Buckeye is in itself going to probably grow exponentially in population in the next 10 years. Looking at the maps today is one thing, but trying to look forward to what it's going to look like in 6 or 7 years as that growth increases, I think is incumbent upon the Redistricting Commission to see where our population is going to be at that point in time. In doing so, if our district goes west of the or east of the 101, excuse me, today that area does not have any community of interest with those communities that are west of the 101. Primarily because of Luke Air Force Base, Buckeye, Avondale, Buckeye, Goodyear, and Litchfield Park, they've all worked together on infrastructure issues, whether it be related to water, whether it be related to air traffic, on those types of things. And they've developed strategic plans that will be severely disrupted if that community of interest does not get represented as a whole and as a group. In our particular area, as I said, we have Surprise and even all the way up to Sun City. I'm currently working with a group in the West Valley to form a coalition that would encompass the current District 4, current District 13, legislative districts 20, 21, and 22. Now, not all of those areas I know can be in the same legislative district, but I think if we can try and focus to keep those areas together, those are the people that we go to church with, those are the people that we shop with our stores with, those are the people that our kids go to school. Just in the Litchfield Elementary School District alone, that school district goes all the way out to Verrado. And so that is definitely a community of interest when it comes to athletics and sports types events for our children too. There's a lot of things that go into this redistricting process, but I think communities of interest is key to that process. And I also think that by taking that area of 75th, you're probably going to be jeopardizing some of the minority-majority issues that face that West Phoenix and Central Phoenix area. So those are things that I'd like to have you consider as we move forward in this process. Thank you.
Pro Tem Chair, Lerner, and Commissioners and listening audience, that is the last of our speakers here in Phoenix.
Thank you. I want to say thank you to everybody for coming out today on a Saturday. We appreciate you taking the time to share with us your thoughts and concerns. We want you to be very aware that we are listening to you, we hear your concerns, and we are working on that. So again, rather than, as we've been saying, rather than just us taking your comments that you say here, please do your best to also submit those in, at this point in any way possible that you can. We certainly would love to have you use our mapping tool, but otherwise you can, as you will hear on next week, we'll be demonstrating how to upload shape files. So if you're using a different tool, you'll be able to do that. We are also going to be providing opportunities for paper files. So we look forward to seeing your comments from those. This will ensure that we will correctly understand the definition of your community and what your concerns are. Please encourage your friends and neighbors and anybody you know to also participate in the process and to share their thoughts. We want to hear from as many people as possible. Anyone can provide us with input at any time. There's no requirement to attend these meetings. We have online access as well, and we encourage people to do so. So again, thank you all for participating. And with that, we will adjourn this meeting.